уважаеми гости, остават броени минути до началото на Webit 2019. Моля, аплодисменти. Dear ladies and gentlemen, a couple of minutes, we're going to start the show. Webit 2019.
We are here to create the future. And these discussions must then trickle out to everyone and everywhere.
Webit is enormous. It's a city within a city.
We all want to grow, we all want to learn, and this is the atmosphere where this can happen.
The best thing about Webit is meeting the innovators, the policymakers, the entrepreneurs, and those driving the future.
We come to Webit, we are supported by the amazing organization. We come for free, and we've been shortlisted for awards, and this is a really big one.
There's more than 100 countries here. I don't have to travel to their country. I can just come here to Webit, and then all the countries come to me.
Well, Webit itself is just spectacular. It's a crazy mix of people, from politicians to innovators to engineers to healthcare professionals to financiers and venture capitalists. Wonderful networking that happens here.
We are here to actually write down what the desirable futures for everyone would be and then design them, engineer them and put them in markets.
If you have an idea, a startup, you come here. If you have an existing business, you come here. If you want to succeed on global stage, Webit is the place to come to. And I'm thoroughly enjoying my experience.
It's the openness. I think the people are super friendly.
Europe's future is definitely reinvented here in Sofia at the Webit.
господа,
Dear ladies and gentlemen,
настъпи часът, време е за нашето Webit пътуване в бъдещето.
the moment has finally come for our Webit time travel to the future.
Няма по-подходящ гид за това пътуване от инвеститора и филантроп, а отскоро и посланник на добра воля за дигиталните въпроси на Република България, домакинът ни доктор Пламен Русев, основател и изпълнителен председател на Webit Foundation.
There is no better person to guide us through this trip but the investor and philanthropist and recently appointed Goodwill Ambassador for Digital Affairs of Republic of Bulgaria, founder and executive chairman of Webit Foundation,
Dr. Plamen Rusev.
Wow. Wow. What a nice friends and family gathering we have here. Wow, that's a lot of people. I grew up in the times when in this particular hall, the New Year's shows were recorded. And you know this young boy in front of the TV, looking at all these shining stars, guitars, singers, rock stars. And I was thinking, maybe I one day, being here at that very stage, it was so cool. And then I realized that I'm not that much for that. I've checked my DNA. It turned out I don't have the DNA for a rock star. It was completely written out. So basically, I lost interest for the show because of the show. And decided that if I use the resources, my personal time, to connect two people on both sides of the Atlantic, or two people on both sides of a street, but they don't know about each other, and help them achieve their dreams. And then they help other people achieve their dreams. That would make a good word of my time. And as we've discussed, people are not born with the intelligence that you all have here in this room. But they are born with one thing that definitely works, their heart. And that's why we've built that community of people from all around the world based on their hearts. Because what we see now in the future is so challenging that only people with the right hearts can really shape the future that we want to build. Not only for us, but also for the planet. And of course, technology turned to be my business and my passion, but it's not technology for technology itself, but it's technology for making people's lives better. Because at the end of the day, why we do everything if not for the people? That's when I started working on my new plan. And actually there was no plan B. It was only one plan. And that plan was to put my time and efforts and to make sure we bring those great people together. Well, in the meantime, I got married. I got my kids and my children, which I found out it's not us teaching them, it's them giving us the lessons of our lives. And of course, getting married made me a believer, because you know very well that I always say there must be a miracle for a woman like my wife to choose me. And further we ended up at meeting the people from all around the world in one place. And here I am now, at that very stage of my childhood. And all those thousands of people from all around the world coming here just because we all stand on the shoulders of the giants that are shaping that hopefully better future for all of us. And you will see them during the next few days. You will see amazing people, people of passion, people of great beliefs, people of amazing attitude and big dreams. You will see all of them here in front of you on that very stage. That's because of them that turned Webit into one of the most impactful global gatherings of entrepreneurs, visionaries, and people from different walks of lives, but with a high impact factor. So, after these words, I have nothing else to say, but to say, welcome world, welcome. We have some very important guests here with us. The President of Bulgaria, our beloved patron, the Mayor of Sofia, the European Commissioner for Digital Economy and Society and Chair of the plenary session, the State Secretary of Innovation of Spain, mayors, ministers, your excellencies from all around, special guests who you will see further on that very stage. But above all, we have you. We have all of you coming from all around the world, and you are here in a country established back in the year of 681. And basically, you would say, I mean, what new could happen in a country with a 1,338 years of history? You don't expect that. I mean, you should have seen everything until now. But as people usually say, there is always a first time. And dear ladies and gentlemen, it is the first time today, at that very day, that something absolutely new has happened in our country, in Bulgaria. And that new thing is that for 1,338 years of history, it's for the first time that this city, the city of Sofia, the capital of Bulgaria, welcomes people from 120 different countries. How about that for something for a first time in this country? I feel so grateful and so privileged to take advantage of this humbling opportunity to welcome you all, the world's digital elite, the people from the civil society and academia, all of you, to the 11th edition of Webit.Festival Europe 2019. Welcome to the Webit City, welcome to Sofia, the digital capital. And now, maybe you wonder why we started Webit as we've started. What were these young people doing on that very stage? And they gave us a sign with their torches. And I would like to see further their light in their eyes. So, it's usually the bad news that comes out in the media. You know, Central News always go for bad news. If there is something bad, they're there. But there was an exception, at least in Bulgaria. A month ago, the Bulgarian media was like covered with great stories about one person, a very young gentleman at the age of 6. What he did was quite amazing for all of us, because he was the one that won something that made us all very proud. Normally, you take it as a trivial story if somebody wins mathematics games in Bulgaria, because it's granted that the Bulgarian mathematicians have more gold medals than German and French together, and we are talking about the school mathematicians. So it's taken like normal. Why are you clapping hands? It's normal. But then, there was something different. That particular mathematician turned to be at the age of 6. And he won the Thai Mathematics Olympics golden medal, and being the youngest in this. So I'm so pleased to welcome here the 6-year-old mathematician, Lachezar Tomov. Lacho. Ladies and gentlemen, what is up? What do you think? Какво мислиш? Аз имам син на 8 и още един на 10. I have a son, two sons. I mean, we have sons with my wife, 8 and 10. I want to make it for the protocol, otherwise. Искам да ми кажеш какво закусваш сутрин, за да им давам и на тях такава закуска. I was asking him what he has for breakfast because I want to give the same breakfast to my sons.
Macaroni.
So, okay, we work with the pasta. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very proud to have the stage, this international stage, and all these people in this huge, huge room to show you people like him. Because it's an inspiration, and it proves that nothing is impossible. And I want to show you more of these stories. But before this, I'm sure that his heart is beating like hell. Give him an applause so I can get him out of the stage. Този път ще го направим ли? Hey! The next, here on that stage, we will see a number of very young, bright people. Speaking about inspiration, I've always been inspired by the space. I grew up in my childhood when the moon was no longer something very cool. The cool was Mars. The cool was teleportation. That was cool. And the older I got, the more this filled my, dreams and thoughts, and of course there are great leaders who you will see here at that very stage, conquering the space and maybe building the next settlements outside of our beautiful planet. But the highest I've ever managed to go is just below the base camp, trying my way to Everest, if you don't count the 100, 150 to 200 days per year flying on flights. Now, I would like to introduce you people who think differently, even at their age, still studying in a school, in a special school. The school where I studied when I was at their age, in my home city of Varna. Please present you to you, and please give a warm welcome to the winners of the world's most prestigious contest by NASA and the America's National Space Society, the Space Settlement Contest. Dear friends, give a warm welcome and applause to the students from Varna Mathematics School, Dr. Peter Baron. Dajte, či nemamo vreme. Welcome.
Thank you.
So I was not expecting you here by foot, maybe flying, but thanks God that you're here. So you won quite an amazing award.
Yes, we did. Thank you.
Yeah, amazing award. Tell us more about it.
So, first of all, that's our space city, the place where all of the scientists live. The most important thing about it is that it's in space and it spins around itself. So there's artificial intelligence, artificial gravity within it. Also, it is based on an ancient symbol for knowledge. And it looks amazing, right?
I don't know. Well, okay. So tell me a little bit about what is it. So this is the capsule for the settlement. It should support the life inside, right?
Yeah.
So the internal architecture is meant to provide comfort and relaxation for all the residents. Also, it utilizes a web system which basically layers up as if there are floors, which creates a sense of spatiality and also reinforces the structure of the colony itself.
All right, so what do you think? How many people you can fit in there?
15,000.
15,000?
15,000, yeah.
Wow, so when do you believe this will happen?
In like 100 or 70 years, I guess.
So we all gonna be alive, don't worry. Can I have a space? Can I have something there, like a small?
Yeah, of course, we'll give you a big apartment.
Oh my God, so that's what I call meeting the right people at the right place. Thank you so much. Before you leave, you know, talent is equally distributed all around the world. So we are in Bulgaria, that's why we have great Bulgarian talents, but it's all about cherishing that talent, fostering that talent, building that talent, and I'm so proud now to welcome on that very stage the person who was director of the school when I was a student in that school. Please give a warm welcome of the director of the people who managed to win that particular contest, the director, Mr. Pavlin Petkov. He was my director.
Много се радвам.
I remember Mr. Petkov so much and so deeply because I was the black sheep, always the black sheep. And I went to him in the mathematics school, knocked on the director's door, and I said, "Dear director, I don't want to study anymore. I want to work. I want to get out of the school." I was in 9th grade. I want to get out of the school. I want to start working and studying at the same time. I want to become a private student. And this gentleman, in that age, it was like, how many years back?
Almost a quarter century.
Thank you. It reminds me that I'm mortal. So after 25 years ago, I've asked him to give me that document to become a private student, and he signed it, sent it to the Minister of Education, signed it, and I became the first ever private student in a mathematics school in Bulgaria. Your innovation is really, really inspiring. Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, we started a bit late because of weather, because of things that we apologize, so we try to catch up now. As many of you know me, I'm not a protocol person, but I believe in one thing, that every year we have to start with rituals. Rituals that come from ancient times, rituals that come to purify our souls, rituals that were made in order to enlighten us and to give us power to move ahead. Because that's the major thing that we need, pure deeds and making the right steps ahead. So our dear friends started with a ritual, giving us the signal of the light. And we always do this. For 10 years, we start Webit with the symbol of the light. They sent their beams to the world for making it a better place. And we are all here to discuss this during the next 2 days and to make it happen. So, they already shared their light. I am ready to share my light with you. Please, share your lights with all of us. Let's send the beam to the world and show that we are here to send a message. The message of creating a better future for all of us. It's in the times of darkness when we need the guiding light. It is where you lose the road, when you need somebody to give you a hand. May the light lead us, the wisdom to guide us, and the love, beauty, and the happiness to crown our success. Let the light shine out of the darkness. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for flying from 120 countries, joining us here to make this world a better place. It wouldn't be possible without every one of you supporting us. It wouldn't be possible without the support of the mayor, without the support of all our partners, without the hundreds of volunteers, without each and everyone's hard work, of course, without the amazing speakers we have here. But for me, it wouldn't be possible without my wife. And I would like to have Aniela now joining me here on that stage. Beyond being my wife, she is the executive director of Webit and member of the board. Ladies and gentlemen, Aniela Ruseva. After these applauses, you can be assured I'm going to have a very nice evening tonight. Well, you have things to say, and I will leave you to do it.
Yes, I do, and I'm not that good at the stage like you, so I have here what I want to say because it's important.
You don't want to hear that compliment from your wife, trust me.
Dear Mr. President, dear Miss Commissioner Gabriel, dear Miss Mayor, Your Excellencies, Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, dear Webiters, coming from 120 countries to our beautiful Sofia, the digital capital. I'm really honored to be here on that stage and to welcome you all here. I'm very hopeful that you enjoy these 2 days in our beautiful city and you will meet Webit partners, clients, and business opportunities. I'm also hopeful that you will feel the Webit energy and you will go back home not only with new signed contracts and business opportunities, but also with new friends, emotions shared, and that you shall be empowered in the next 2 days to create better, smarter, lighter future, because it all belongs to us, to the people that are changing the world into a better place. And I'm happy to see 15,000 registered of them for Webit for these 2 days coming to Sofia. I'm here on that stage to welcome you all, but I'm here also to say big thank you to all our partners and sponsors that help us to make this into reality. Dear ministers, the governmental support when you're doing something with that level of impact is something that you need, and it's great. And thank you for having you behind us. Dear Miss Mayor, you personally and your amazing team, you are our angels. So I cannot say anything but just big thank you. I will not be more boring to share all the partners that stay behind Webit, but I would love to say big thank you to our official partner, Visa, this year. To our strategic media partner for the past many years, Nova TV and NetInfo. To our exclusive Platinum Startups partner that actually help us bring here, out of 4,000 applied, the best 150 European startups. Thank you, Microsoft. To our gold partners, Generali, IBM Watson, SAP, Live TV Data, and others. To our internet provider, do you all have Wi-Fi? Yes or no? Thank you, Netera. To our cashless partner, MasterCard. Maybe I'll miss some of you, but I'm sure that you'll meet them around for these 2 days at all the stages that we host all the events simultaneously. But I will not miss the people, the teams that have been working for the past months 24/7 to make this miracle happen. Thank you to the people in Right Rental team. I know that if they're not here, they need a little bit to go back home and to sleep, because they have been building Webit City for the past weeks, like non-stop. Thank you, Code Gourmet, that you take care that we all eat delicious food for these days. Thank you to Events and Rental for taking care for each and every detail. And when you make such a production, believe me, there are many details and each one is very important and everything is very urgent. Thank you to all of you that are here, Code Gourmet, thank you VIP Security, thank you to the National Palace of Culture for being our host. Thank you, ETI, Event Team Inclusive. Thank you all, and hope you will all enjoy what we've created for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Aniela. And a very special thanks to all of you who she mentioned, and a special person, the Digital Commissioner for Digital Economy and Society, who managed to, and who chaired Webit and the plenary session. I know that she had a very, very important moment. She was just here with us, but we know we are all in election time, so I guess she hurried out of the room and we won't be able to see her that stage. But special thanks to Miss Maria Gabriel. So, thank you. Without further ado, I would like now to invite here on the stage a very special person. A person who has been creating and was working with Webit for so long. A person who has been together with us as a team. And we built what we've built really together. It's a great symbiosis when a wonderful idea receives the host and the welcoming hospitality of a city like Sofia. So, dear ladies and gentlemen, I would like to kindly invite here the mayor of Sofia, Mrs. Jordanka Fandakova. Mrs. Fandakova, thank you so much for being with us for so many years. While they're setting up your speaking desk, I appreciate everything that you've done for Webit so far.
Уважаеми господин президент на Република България, уважаеми госпожи и господа министри, народни представители, официални гости, уважаеми участници в 11-то издание на Webit.Festival в София, господин Русев, за мен е огромно удоволствие, че за пореден път мога да бъда на сцената на Webit и да приветствам всички вас с добре дошли в нашия прекрасен град. Вече е традиция градът да събира немалка част от една активна световна общност, чието идеи и енергия движат обществото. Срещи като тази ни позволяват да правим равносметка за постоянния прогрес в сферата на технологиите и да получаваме вдъхновение, както да използваме в решаването на предизвикателствата, които стоят пред нас, най-новите постижения на технологиите. Фестивалът Webit се утвърди като събитието, което събира в нашия град изследователи, предприемачи, инвеститори, както и много стартиращи компании в дигиталния сектор от цял свят. Отново, добре дошли на всички вас. Позволете ми да поздравя организаторите, Пламен Русев и целия му екип, за вдъхновението и ентусиазма, които ни предават всяка година. Да благодаря на моя екип, на хората от моя екип, които правят всичко възможно София да бъде добър домакин. Благодарение на всички вас, София се утвърди като дигитална столица на новите пазари. Webit е едно от събитията, които отразяват напредъка на София, който постигаме заедно в трансформирането на столицата ни. Именно от нашите умения, мотивация и работа зависи отключването на потенциала, с който столицата ни разполага, и той съвсем не е малък. Видяхме младите хора, да, те са от Варна, но в България навсякъде има много талантливи млади хора. Аз искам да поздравя всички таланти в нашия град, благодарение на които инвеститорите идват тук, в София. Те идват именно заради хората, заради подготвените, мотивирани и талантливи хора. София е успешен град и никога не съм била по-уверена в това, защото съм на тази сцена и виждам енергията, волята и мотивацията да бъдете най-добрите и да направите най-доброто. Аз вярвам, че технологиите ни помагат да решаваме всички предизвикателства, които стоят пред нас, но вярвам, че не технологиите, а хората, които чертаят новите пътища, са тези, които ни променят и чието мечти стигат винаги нови хоризонти. София показа, че е дом на една активна световна общност, чието идеи и енергия движат и нас, и целия свят напред. Важно е да не забравяме пътя, от който сме тръгнали, който сме извървяли, за да стигнем до днес, като уверено говорим за иновациите, които предприемчивите хора създават в София. За да ги окуражим, ние се фокусираме на задачи. Първата – развитие на силна икономика, подобряване на инфраструктурата и, разбира се, най-важната – умения за новата дигитална реалност. Днес София е по-конкурентна от всякога в привличане на повече от половината чуждестранни инвестиции в страната. През последните години голяма част от тях са насочени към високотехнологични производства, индустрии и дейности с висока добавена стойност. Заедно с това продължаваме да развиваме цялата инфраструктура, включително и дигиталната. Но най-важното, отново ще кажа, това са уменията. Това са уменията на хората да създават и да работят в дигитална среда. За мен е особено важно да подкрепяме младите хора, да подкрепяме стартиращите компании. Затова съм щастлива, че през последната година успяхме да създадем няколко важни инструмента за това. Всички ще имате възможност да се запознаете с новите програми на Столичната община, заедно с нашите структури, на щандовете, които са подредени пред залата. Само ще кажа, че новата ни програма Акселератор Стартъп София привлече 46 идеи, 46 млади компании, 13 от тях спечелиха пилотния проект и ще бъдат представени утре на щанда на Инвест София. Заповядайте! За нас е истинско удоволствие, че всички вие сте тук, че енергията на софийските предприемачи се събира заедно с енергията на нашите гости от цялата страна и от целия свят. Добре дошли! Успех на 11-то издание на Webit.Festival!
Dear ladies and gentlemen, I have the pleasure and honor to invite here on the stage the European Commissioner for Digital Economy and Society, Mrs. Maria Gabriel. Welcome. It's an honor to have you with us.
Welcome in Sofia, welcome in Bulgaria. Уважаеми господин президент, уважаема госпожо кмет, уважаеми господин министър, министри, скъпи Пламен, организатори и гости на най-специалното събитие Webit. Най-напред искам от все сърце да благодаря за това, че отново за втори път имам изключителното удоволствие да бъда сред вас. Защото да, последните 2 години пътувах много в Европа. Бях на много събития, посветени на цифровите технологии. Но позволете ми да споделя нещо с вас. Има нещо специално в Webit. Всички можем да почувстваме тази положителна енергия, която събира хиляди хора от всякъде, за да работим всички заедно за нашето цифрово бъдеще. И това е наистина вдъхновяващо. Разбира се, като български гражданин съм горда, че енергията от тук събраните участници, инфлуенсъри, предприемачи и политици се случва в моята родина, в страна, която толкова много обичаме и с която се гордеем. Радвам се, че София, дигиталната столица, е домакин на най-добрите експерти, вперили поглед в бъдещето, но най-вече изпълващи го със съдържание и с ползи за всеки един от нас. Защото да, цифрова Европа е много повече от отделни точки Германия, Финландия, Испания, Словения, Полша, България. За мен, като комисар, изграждането на цифровата трансформация, така че тя да обхваща всички европейски страни, е един от най-важните приоритети. И Webit конкретно нагледява този европейски модел. Защото, позволете ми да си припомним една от фразите на Жан Моне, вдъхновителя на декларацията на Шуман от 9 май 1950 година. Той казва: нищо не е възможно без хората. Те са основният двигател на Европа. А Webit не би бил възможен без неговият екип и перфектната организация. Затова искам да благодаря на Пламен Русев за почти свръхчовешката енергия и интелигентност, за забележителното му усещане за прозорливост, за неговата неуморимост и най-вече за голямото му сърце. България наистина може да се гордее, че има такъв посланник на нашето общо цифрово бъдеще. Дами и господа, За мен е чест и днес с вас да използвам възможността, за да споделя къде е Европа. Европа отбеляза значителен напредък последните 2 години по отношение на цифровата трансформация. Познавате ме като човек, който обича да гледа към бъдещето, не само да се осланя на постигнатото в миналото. Но днес е един прекрасен повод да си кажем, че се гордеем с постигнатото през последните 2 години по отношение на цифровия единен пазар, на европейския цифров единен пазар. Премахваме ненужни бариери. 28 от 30 законодателни предложения са приети. Работихме за край на роуминга, подобряване на свързаността, електронната търговия, защита на данните и свободното им движение, авторското право, киберсигурността, електронното управление. Не се задоволихме само с страните от Европейски съюз. Засилихме и ще продължаваме да го правим сътрудничеството с страни извън Европа. Затова искам и на тях да им благодаря, че днес отново сме тук, за да можем заедно да градим цифровото си бъдеще. Това ми се иска да продължаваме да правим и с Западните Балкани, и с другите ни партньори, за които последните години отбелязваме съществен напредък. Но гледайки напред, искам да се съсредоточа върху 3 основни акцента. Първо, в Европа е налице подем на нови инвестиции в цифровите технологии. И ето няколко цифри. На европейско равнище през 2018 година повече от 25 милиарда евро рисков капитал са инвестирани в европейски дружества. Това е повече от 5 пъти сумата, инвестирана преди 5 години. Това не е само количествено измерение. Технологичният пейзаж еволюира и в качествено измерение. Spotify, Aiden, Farfetch, Elastic – това бяха 4-те дружества, чието първично публично предлагане бе оценено на над 5 милиарда долара първия ден на котиране миналата година. А в световен мащаб Европа финансира 3 от 10-те най-големи технологични първични публични предлагания. И ако разгледаме първата половина на 2019 година, мога само да се радвам с това, че отбелязваме отново ръст. Повече от 7,3 милиарда евро са инвестирани в иновативни технологични компании. Това е рекордно 3-месечие с някои много положителни примери. N26, Relax, Doctolib, от здравеопазване до банкови транзакции. Това, което мен ме радва, е, че говорим за нашите, европейските шампиони. Знаем, че трябва още повече. Искаме в този контекст да се радваме на добро приложение на предложената от мен нова програма на Европейския съюз Цифрова Европа. 9 милиарда евро, за да кажем, няма държава членка, която може да се справи сама в областта на изкуствения интелект, на киберсигурността, на високите цифрови умения. Затова е важно заедно с вас да направим така, че тази програма да носи полза на всяка държава и на всяка общност в нея. Второ, ние сме в началото на поредицата от възможни дигитални сътресения. В световен мащаб компаниите усвояват силата на цифровите услуги. Изкуствен интелект, машинно обучение, блокчейн. Всичко това, за да стимулираме растежа, за да създаваме работни места, да се повиши производителността на работната сила и усъвършенстваме продуктите, които да стават все по-достъпни за хората. Трябва да гарантираме, че и Европейски съюз ще бъде готов за тази трансформация. Не започваме от нулата. И сега финансираме проекти в областта на блокчейна. Видяхме в изложението колко силна застъпена е тази тема. Но в общ план имаме нужда от повече. Третата ми констатация е по отношение на политиките, които помагат на предприятията да се разрастват. Защото да, за да се разрастват европейските предприятия, са необходими амбициозни основатели, отдадени таланти, достъп до капитал и достъп до пазарите. Знаете и привързаността ми към темата за цифровите умения. Нашата задача е да гарантираме, че тези предприятия имат най-високи шансове за успех в Европа. Затова инициативи като Startup Europe и цифровия единен пазар са нашият отговор, за да отговорим на тези предизвикателства. Иска ми се наистина да не са само Zalando и Spotify. И за това е необходимо повече хармонизиране на политиките на европейско ниво. Дами и господа, Европа може да се върне, може да си върне лидерското място в технологиите, ако се концентрираме върху 3 основни елемента – екосистеми, талант и платформи. Да започнем с таланта. Цитатът на Жан Моне звучи по-актуално от всякога. Успехът на Европа зависи от нейните граждани. Както всички знаете, в момента всички говорят за недостиг на таланти. И през последните 2 години се радвам, че убедих и колегите си в Европа тази тема да стои високо в дневния ред. Защото най-силният актив на Европа са нейните таланти. Затова знаем, бъдещето ни ще бъде предопределено от способността да инвестираме в образование, да модернизираме и подобрим образователната ни система и дадем на всеки европейски гражданин необходимите умения, за да работим за Европа, която включва, а не Европа, която изоставя зад борда, за да можем нашите таланти да ги задържим тук и в Европа. Много важен втори елемент – публично-частни иновативни екосистеми. Знаем всички колко важни са стартиращите екосистеми. Много често сме говорили с министъра на Испания Франциско Поло за това. Знаем обаче, че днес голяма част от случващото се в Европа се случва в едва 5 държави, в едва няколко центъра. Ето защо ми е толкова важна подкрепата и работата с университетите, с националните и местните власти, за да може стартиращи общности около събития като тези, като Webit, да могат наистина да ускорят създаването на наситена и истинска европейска екосистема, която да може да стимулира културата на предприемачеството, да може да дава технологии, които носят полза на хората. Иска ми се да имаме стартиращи компании, нови продукти навсякъде в Европа. И накрая става дума за изграждане на глобални онлайн цифрови платформи. Днес и занапред цифровизацията е организирана около големи онлайн платформи, които контролират достъпа на потребителите до онлайн света. Колко от нас общуват във Фейсбук, пазаруват от Амазон, ежедневно търсят Google, гледат филми в Netflix, изтеглят приложение чрез iOS Store и слушат музика в Spotify. Само една от тези платформи е европейска. Това е едно от нашите най-големи предизвикателства. Сред 20-те най-големи световни цифрови компании нито на една не е европейска. И само 8 европейски компании са сред първите 200. Превръщането на европейските платформи в глобални лидери трябва да бъде един от основните акценти на нашата бъдеща европейска индустриална политика. За това ще са нужни инвестиции, научно-изследователска дейност, правилно регулиране на онлайн платформите, подходящи вътрешни и външни политики, които да гарантират реципрочност, световните инвестиции и търговия. И когато говорим за платформи, правото на неприкосновеност е от съществено значение. Длъжни сме да претворим ценностите на Европа в цифровото развитие. Необходими са повече усилия за защита на свободата на изразяване, на демокрацията, да насърчим етичен изкуствен интелект и създадем атмосфера на доверие на хората, на потребителите в технологиите. Това е, което направихме с защитата на личните данни, това е, което започнахме да правим с етичните насоки относно използването на изкуствения интелект. Дами и господа, в заключение заедно тая надеждата, че ще върнем Европа сред водещите технологични лидери в света. Това зависи от нашата готовност да създадем най-подходящата правна среда в областта на цифровите технологии. Успехът е в ръцете на всеки един от нас. По-точно успехът е в нашия ум, в нашата положителна енергия. За тези, които са футболни фенове и следят Шампионската лига, как да не бъдем впечатлени от вярата, енергията и решимостта на Ливърпул да се изправи след трудната първа битка срещу Барселона и все пак да спечели с 4-0 след първоначалната загуба от 0-3. Каква победа и какъв треньор! Треньор, който може да каже на отбора си няколко минути преди матча: вие сте изправени пред почти невъзможна задача. Но защото сте вие, мисля, че победата е възможна. Искам да ви предам същото послание на увереност. Европа е изправена пред много предизвикателства, липсват и големи платформи, може би трудно се адаптираме или сме обезкуражени от негативно мислене и царящо недоволство. Но никога не трябва да се предаваме. Вярвам, че сме способни да имаме световни шампиони от Европа. Вярвам, че можем да изградим изкуствен интелект, насочен към човека. И се надявам, че всички заедно, още по-силно, ще утвърдим нашите демократични ценности. Както казва професорът от Харвард Клейтън Кристенсен, иноваторите се нуждаят от голяма доза вяра. Те трябва да се доверяват на интуицията си, че работят по една велика идея. Нека работим заедно за изграждането на тази идея. Изграждане на по-човешка, по-конкурентно способна, по-сигурна и демократична Европа. Благодаря на всеки един от вас, участниците в Webit, че допринасяте за това. Благодаря ви от сърце.
I have the pleasure now to introduce somebody of high importance after this inspiration speech by Commissioner Gabriel. We have, the only way this could happen is through all our partners and friends that support us. And the next speaker is here to give a welcome address, as he is the official partner of Webit.Festival Europe 2019. Please give a warm welcome to Mr. Bill Gaida, who is Global Head Strategic Partnerships and Innovation, Visa Inc. Bill, thank you so much for your support. It means a lot to us. Thank you so much.
Good morning. Mr. President, Madam Mayor, Madam Commissioner, distinguished guests, and everybody at this year's Webit Festival, I want to say how delighted we are at Visa to be the head sponsor for this year's event. You know, we've been involved with Webit since it started 11 years ago, but we were really able to increase our support this year to be the main corporate sponsor. And when you take a look at what happened with this event, what's happening in the city of Sofia, what's happening in this region, it should be no surprise. Let's start with the event. If you think about this event 11 years ago and today, 120 countries represented, it's gone from being a regional event to a European event to now truly a global event. And I think that's a tribute to the team here, the founders who've done all this work. 15,000 people exploring virtually every aspect of innovation and the emergence of new digital technologies. And so again, our hats off to Webit, and we're delighted to be a partner for this year. If you take a look at Sofia in Bulgaria, you know, it's a very fast-growing and emerging payments market, still a lot of cash here, so a lot of potential to digitize commerce in this market. But it's also becoming a hub for emerging fintech. You know, we traditionally think about London and Berlin and Paris and places like Stockholm, but increasingly markets like Sofia are turning out young entrepreneurs and gaining investment in areas of digital commerce and fintech, companies like Payhawk, et cetera, that Visa has supported. And so we continue to look at this city and this market as important for us as we develop our own fintech capabilities. And then if you take a look at this region, for Visa, Bulgaria is part of a region that we call Southeastern Europe, a cluster of 9 markets. It will be for Visa in Europe the fastest growing region for the next several years. A tremendous opportunity, again, because of the amount of cash that we can displace. The number of new players are coming in, the advent and the distribution of contactless payments, what's happening in transport. And so again, we see Southeastern Europe as very exciting for Visa. So again, on behalf of Visa, we'd like to welcome everyone to this year's Webit Festival, and thank you so much for all your support, and we're delighted to be the sponsor this year. Enjoy the show.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for being with us. I look forward to your keynote, literally in a couple of minutes. And now I have something special to announce to all of you here in that very room. It's been a long process, and Webit has been built here 11 years ago. Then Webit moved to Istanbul, bringing a global ecosystem there, and then further opened Dubai and Singapore and India. Last year, we have launched something which was a very special project, which was to select another light in Europe where Webit to move next as an opportunity. Webit is something that we have been building so many years, changing the ecosystems, building value for everybody. And at that very moment, we were very humble, announcing globally, that European-wise, that Webit 2020, the festival one, and of course, the one that is the European edition, is open for an opportunity to see new hosts. It was humbling for us to receive 27 cities bidding for becoming the host of Webit. It was humbling for us to see the light of so many places coming towards us. I was told by our consultants that even the Olympic Games didn't have that many applications from European cities, starting from London, through Tel Aviv, from Madrid, Valencia, Budapest, Rotterdam, Amsterdam, even cities between the countries competing. It was a very tough process for us because we had to be very much on the point so that you don't want these amazing cities to feel any, turbulence. You want to make it smooth for all of them, keep the respect factor for everybody. It was an unexpected experience. But at the end of the day, we know it now. We've done it, and we were humbled by the interest. There were 5 selected at the final round, and 1 is the winner. And today, I have the honor and pleasure to request here on stage the mayor of Sofia, who is the patron of this event and will always be for our local edition, the mayor of Sofia, Mrs. Vandakova. Mrs. Vandakova, I'm giving you this. I just removed something because I wanted to keep it blank here. I will put it later on because I don't want the camera to see it. It's a very special moment for us because everything you've done for Webit helped us grow bigger and bigger. And we will continue shining here in this light in this city. But a new light is given now to Europe. And I'm very proud and honored to request here the pleasure and announcing the winner, the city of Valencia. We have here the pleasure at the stage, the Secretary of State of Valencia, Mr. Polo, and the Deputy Mayor of Spain, and the Deputy Mayor of Valencia, Mrs. Gomez. So, congratulations. We look forward to an amazing, beautiful, as fruitful and successful cooperation as we had here, and even more. Thank you so much. Thank you. Please, this is Miss Mayor. Maybe we should give it to them. Or no. Thank you. Well, please.
Good morning, dober den. Thank you very much in name of Valencia for this opportunity. Thank you for Mr. Plamen, Rousseff. Thank you very much. Thank you to the ecosystem, regional governments, and thank you to the Spanish government. I want to say that we are ready for the Webit.Festival 2020. Welcome to Valencia and Blagoderia.
Thank you.
Good morning, Webiters. I wanted to say, well, first, thank you to the President, thank you to the Mayor, authorities, and all of you, innovators, entrepreneurs, investors. I couldn't say if I'm more excited as an entrepreneur, you know I'm an entrepreneur, or honored as a Secretary of State to host the next Webit Festival in Valencia next year. As you probably know, Valencia is full of life, and you'll see there. It's also an amazing city next to the sea, and it's also a vibrant startup ecosystem in Spain, also very well connected to Madrid and Barcelona, who are also new ecosystems in Europe. I wanted to congratulate Webit Foundation for this amazing event and for gathering more than 10,000 people here in Sofia. I'm sure that we're going to gather even more next year in Valencia, and we are going to be the perfect partner to have a bigger and bigger and bigger celebration here in Europe. I just wanted to also say that it's not only the election of Valencia that is absolutely great, but also the election of Spain. Spain wants to become, and it's going to become, the next startup nation in the world. We're going to attract talent all over the world. We're going to attract investors. We're going to develop and also invite entrepreneurs from across the world to come to Spain and start their own companies, and as some of us did in the past. And we want to turn government as an ally for entrepreneurs all across the world. We want to also turn Spain into the next startup nation, but we don't want to do it in a way that has been seen before. We want to do it in a very innovative way. We want to be the next place for innovation in the world, and we want to do it leaving no one behind. Because we, the innovators, the entrepreneurs, we are at the forefront of the cutting edge of innovation, and we need to remind ourselves that not everyone has the same opportunity, and we want to foster this new startup nation, as I said, leaving no one behind. So, looking forward to see all of you next year in Webit Festival Valencia 2020. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We look forward to the sun. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the Webit light will continue shining in the digital capital of the world here. And the president of this place honored us with his presence. I have the pleasure and honor to invite somebody who made such a big impact on me at the moment I met him a couple of years ago. He was just elected for a president, but he was not a president yet. And there was another president, Mr. Plevneliev, and both of them agreed on something that no one else has done before. Both of them signed document and made sure that Bulgaria is able to show how united it is when it comes to building the future together. Since that very moment, the President of Bulgaria, Mr. Radev, definitely won my heart for thinking ahead. So, thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for honoring us. Please join us on the stage. The President of Bulgaria, Mr. Rumen Radev.
Уважаеми господин Русев, уважаема госпожо кмет на София, уважаема госпожо еврокомисар, уважаеми представители на държавни институции, ваши превъзходителства, скъпи гости и организатори. Има събития, които остават в историята с своята значимост. Има и такива, които отварят вратите към бъдещето със своята прозорливост. Има и други, които оставят дълбок емоционален отпечатък и въздействие върху светоусещането на всички участници. Webit е всичко това. Всички ние в тази зала днес имаме уникалния шанс заедно да погледнем в бъдещето. Виждаме как само за едно десетилетие Webit се превърна от дигитално и техно събитие в глобален форум и флагман на иновациите, предприемачеството и новите технологии по света. За нас, българите, освен всичко, Webit е и гордост. Не само защото е български патент, не само защото наложи София като дигитална столица и утвърждава все повече България като регионален лидер в иновациите, информационните технологии, стартиращите компании, но и защото Webit доказа нещо много важно, че в областта на иновациите вече няма малки и големи държави, а има държави с амбиции за успех и каузи за проспериращо бъдеще. Че има успех там, където иновациите намират подкрепа в обществото, в местната власт и изпълнителната власт. Искам специално да поздравя организаторите в лицето на господин Русев за огромния успех да привлекат хиляди участници от 120 държави. За нас е удоволствие да бъдем ваши гости, домакини, в ролята ви на гости на това забележително събитие. Възползвайте се от визитата си в България и срещите с нашите млади и талантливи хора. Възползвайте се от възможностите за взаимодействие и коопериране с българските компании, които се превърнаха в пример за иновативност, гъвкавост и ефикасност. Знам, че иновациите и информацията ще бъдат в фокуса на това събитие, както и дълбоката трансформация на нашите общества в резултат на новите технологии. Искам само да заостря вашето внимание върху сложността на тези процеси и ефектите от дигитализацията. Силната конкуренция и все по-дълбокото проникване на технологиите в всички сфери на обществения живот налагат все повече скоростта като основен приоритет при разработването на новите продукти. Особено в дигиталната сфера. Времето от възникването на дадена идея до нейното претворяване в реалния живот се скъсява драматично. И въпреки този огромен натиск за скорост, разработчиците не трябва да забравят нещо много важно, че алгоритмите и софтуера, които се разработват днес, ще влияят върху ценностите и върху формирането на моделите за обществено поведение утре, особено в младите хора. Това е огромна отговорност. И тя изисква да мислим все повече за етиката в иновациите. И това е една от големите заслуги на Webit. да събира на едно място всички хора, от които зависи този сложен процес. Предприемачи, разработчици, иноватори, учени, журналисти, политици. And finally, I would like to address our foreign friends. I'm sure that this forum will prove that there is no limit to success when all of us share common values for the good of our common future. Wishing you every success. I truly hope that you, the foreign participants, will take your time and enjoy staying in our beautiful country, and will take advantage of working together with your Bulgarian counterparts. Don't miss the chance, and good luck to everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of Bulgaria, Mr. Rumen Radev. Now, I officially announce Webit Open. We start with challenging keynotes, with amazing innovations on that very stage. You will see some truly inspirational things. And we, of course, continue with our official press conference. Now, I'll be happy to welcome on that stage, again, back Mr. Bill Gaida. Thank you all. Let's have great 2 days together.
Ladies and gentlemen, now that Webit 2019 is officially open,
I have to say that's a better introduction than I get for most of my presentations. So we've had the welcomes now, and again, I want to thank everyone for being here. But what I wanted to do for a few minutes is talk a little bit about Visa's journey through innovation. As most of you know, there's been an unprecedented amount of change in the payments and the commerce industry. And I think as we are halfway through that journey, some of the lessons we've learned, some of the key themes that we look at have a lot of relevance for everybody in this room, regardless of how you're focusing on innovation, which industry you're in, what stage of evolution. And so I'll talk a little bit about Visa, but mostly what I want to talk about is how we think about the commerce landscape today and how we've had to adapt to what is an unprecedented amount of change in our industry. And I think that's analogous to a lot of what's going on in all the industries that are going to be discussed at this year's Webit Festival. But before I talk about our innovation journey, I just want to talk for a few minutes about where it started. If you think about what's happened in commerce over the last 5 to 10 years, there's been a bringing together, this convergence of changes in consumer behaviors, changes in regulation, and changes in technology that has forever changed the landscape for payments and commerce in Europe, but around the world. First, if you start with what's happened in terms of consumers, the ubiquity of mobile devices and tablets and smart devices and Amazon Echoes and virtual reality and augmented reality and blockchain have put more control and more expectations in consumers' hands than ever before. And so when we think about what's happened with payments, we kind of got to decide on the evolution of plastic and then the chip and the acceptance devices. But because consumers expect from payments the same experience they have from social media or enterprise applications or music or gaming, we've had to adapt as an industry to these changing consumer expectations. If you take a look at the changes in technology, we're seeing a continued acceleration of new technologies, many of which didn't look like they were going to affect commerce, but they all have. Right? So it's not just smartphones and the ability to put a Visa card digitally on your phone. It's people have expectations about making payments in a virtual reality or an augmented reality situation. They have expectations about building payments into a wearable so they don't have to have their phone, never mind their wallet, when they go out. So the technology that is driving innovation and change in commerce is accelerating at a rate that we've never seen before. And then the last thing that's changed in this convergence is the role of regulation. It's particularly acute here in Europe with PSD2, the regulation that both drives innovation. You know, they've forced the banks to open up their networks, expose APIs, to allow startups and young companies to get people's payment information and account information with their permission. But at the same time, they've reinforced the role of security through strong customer authentication, or what we call two-factor authentication on many transactions. So on the one hand, we have regulators around the world who actually want to drive cash out of the system. They want more transparency, they want more security for payments, they want more global connectivity, and that really helps us as a payments ecosystem. But at the same time, they demand it have more and more security and provide a more and more open ecosystem. And so we're trying to balance those efforts as well. So the landscape that we have in payments is similar, I think, to the landscape that many of you have in your industries. It's the role of technology, the changing tastes of the consumer, and the role of regulation. So if that's where we start in terms of the things that are driving change in our industry, you know, for the next few minutes, I want to talk about 4 or 5 things that have shaped Visa's view about innovation, and hopefully they'll have some relevance in the industries you're working in. The first thing that we look at is that we've got to completely change the way we think about payments. I mean, at its core, regardless of all these changes, security is at the center. And the good news is, every mode of payment is more secure than the last one. Chip was better than magstripe. Contactless is better than chip. What we're doing now using mobile location and device ID and biometrics is better than the first technologies on phone. And so security continues to get better as we innovate with payments. But at the same time, consumers also want simplicity in payments. They want the networks and the banks and the technology players in our industry to work out all of the complexity, and payments can be complex. They want it simple. And so if you take a look at a lot of the innovation that's going on in our industry today with all of these neobanks or new payment players, they're taking age-old experiences, loaning money, looking up prices for goods, opening up a bank account, getting a mortgage, and they're driving through technology an unprecedented amount of simplicity. And so that's one of the focuses that we have for Visa as well. And then the third one is it's got to be seamless. As I said earlier, people expect from payments the same kind of seamless experience they get from gaming. They want to go from the large screen to the Nintendo Switch to their mobile phone, and they want to pick up right where they left off. That's their expectation. And they want the same thing from payments. So balancing through our innovation program, and I think for all of you, security at the core, but then these customer expectations of creating new seamless and increasingly simple services so that we address all the complexity in the background. And so that's been one cornerstone of our innovation approach. A second one is we've learned through this process the power of partnerships. I mean, Visa's been a relatively successful company for most of our 60-year history, but if you take a look at it, until very recently, we were a closed network. I mean, it was a very large closed network, 40 million merchants, 23,000 banks, 3 billion cardholders, but you really only got invited if you were a Visa license holder and a direct kind of physical connection. You know, that's how we drove security. We made up the rules for the scheme and the way it worked. And it provided a high level of security and consistency around the world. I mean, the magic of Visa is I can arrive in Sofia and I can go to a restaurant like I did last night, and I put my Visa card down, and I'm completely secure that my payment is protected, and so is the merchant, and we've never met each other before. I mean, the magic of payments is the ability for strangers to conduct commerce with complete security. But if you take a look at it, then when we looked at all the technology and consumer demands, we couldn't be that closed network anymore. We had to open up to new platform providers. The group I started 7 years ago, Strategic Partnerships, was all because we realized that it wasn't just the banks and the networks. It was the Apples and the Googles and the Stripes and the Microsofts and the Facebooks and the Ubers that were increasingly driving commerce. And so another thing that we learned in this innovation journey that I think is relevant for everybody here is the closed ecosystems, the closed approach, the proprietary technology doesn't work. And so we've focused on partnerships in a way that's unprecedented as part of this innovation mentioned, but increasingly it's focusing on startups, emerging fintechs. You know, we probably look at Visa through our venture program at 300 to 400 companies a year around the world and are accelerating the rate at which we make investments in startups or incubate or accelerate. And so when we think about partnerships at Visa, it's small and large. The other thing that we realized when we looked at Visa as part of our innovation journey is that because of technology, we have the ability to create a network that is as global and as seamless and as large an ecosystem as we ever have. If you take a look at Visa, as I said, we've been very successful, but outside of Western Europe and the United States and Canada, some markets in Asia, it's really been focused on the wealthy and the traveler. Right? If you think about it, Visa was accepted everywhere, but in a lot of markets, other than the ones I've just mentioned, it was really at hotels and restaurants and department stores as opposed to this broad acceptance. But now with technology, we're able to deepen our ecosystem so an occasional merchant, the gardener, our babysitter, can now accept Visa payments on his or her phone. We can go into our parts of East and West Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, Southeast Asia, where there hasn't been acceptance, and because of low-cost acceptance, really drive the size and the shape of the ecosystem to get to the people that are unbanked or underbanked, to get to the people who have to use cash but don't want to, because in many markets cash is expensive and it can actually be dangerous, and they want the security and the convenience of digital payments, and we weren't able to provide it. So when we think about our innovation journey as well, I think the fourth thing we thought about was how we can harness this technology, not just to create that simplicity and that customer experience and the security, but expand the role of the ecosystem. And I'll just give you one example. 5 years ago, we started working what we called mobile point of sale. These low-cost point of sale devices that weren't tied to fixed telecommunications, they weren't tied to fixed electricity, and they allowed almost anybody to accept payments in their hands, tied to a mobile phone. Well, it took us 50 years to where we would say, or 55 years to where we'd say there's 40 million places you can use your Visa card. And now it's 55 million, and it's growing, that's in 5 years, and it's growing millions every year because we've untethered acceptance and been able to provide it in places that would never be able to accept cards before. And so that's just one example of how we're trying to build the ecosystem as a key part of our innovation agenda. Well, I'll go back. I think the other thing that we learned when we looked at this innovation agenda is just generally, culturally, how we had to become open for business. You know, if you thought about Visa, there was a lot of payments people with a long time experience in Visa that really knew our rules really well, really understood our relationships with the banks really well, started to understand our relationships with the merchants. And what we realized, and I think this is a message for everybody, is we really had to retool our talent inside Visa and able to take advantage of all the changes that were going on in the ecosystem. If you look at us now, you know, we're hiring people that are expert in agile development, people that are API natives and digital first, people that are classic design school trained in human-centered design and design school thinking. You know, these are talents that we wouldn't even thought about kind of 6 or 7 years ago at Visa, and they've really now become the cornerstone of our innovation agenda. We've also realized that we have to promote ourselves as increasingly a technology company, not a payments company. And we are. At our core, we're a technology company. So in the last 4 or 5 years, we've opened up innovation centers in London, in San Francisco, in Singapore, in Dubai, in Buenos Aires, in Sao Paulo, in Berlin. We're looking at one in Paris. We're looking at one in Istanbul, because we realize that in order to harness all of the innovation that's going on in markets that are large and that markets that are small, we need centers where people can come and experience Visa, take a look at our own APIs, develop on top of them so that we can continue to expand the shape and the scope of the ecosystem. And so at Visa, you know, when we think about our innovation journey, I'll say that we're halfway through it. It's never ending, but if you take a look at the real acceleration that we focused on, it's been 5 years, and I think we've probably got another 5 to go, to really retool our talent, to continue to look at innovative startups that can help us, to broaden our partnerships that I talked about. We've made a good progress, but every day there's new partners that we need to take a look at it and develop these relationships with, to continue to change our mindset from a very large closed loop to this company that's open for business for a broad range of ecosystem players. And last thing I'll say is, for a lot of you out there, when you think about your businesses, except for the fintechs here, and I know every year there's more and more fintechs, commerce may not be the focus of your business, but at some point, taking advantage of the innovation in commerce and the drive to these new consumer experiences, or how we roll out broader acceptance, it will become a part of your strategy. If you're going to be successful, commerce will become part of your strategy. And increasingly, I talk to companies who didn't think they were in the commerce business, and then 2 or 3 years into their startup journey, they realize that commerce isn't just about accepting payments, it's strategic to the growth of their company. So again, I just wanted to spend a few minutes to talk about how Visa thinks about innovation, some of the challenges we've encountered along our journey. As I said, we're halfway through it, and hopefully provide some insights that we can all think about as we kind of retool ourselves to take advantage of changes in technology and consumer expectation and all the developments that we see here. So again, on behalf of Visa, thanks again for attending this event. I know you'll hear from more of my colleagues over the next 2 days. Delightful to be here in Sofia, and enjoy the rest of the festival. Thank you very much.
He is the Chief Executive Officer of Airbus Defense and Space, and a member of Airbus Executive Committee, and a member of the Young Global Leader class of the World Economic Forum. Please put your hands together for Mr. Dirk Hoek.
Yeah, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor to be here. And many of you might have asked yourself why a company like Airbus is in a digital conference. And I can tell you, like many other industries, also aerospace is in the middle of a digital transformation. So just to give you an idea, in the next 8 to 10 years, we have to replace 55,000 people out of 135,000. And of course, these young people that will join us, they're mostly Generation Y and Z, and we look at, of course, also a lot of new skills. It doesn't mean that we will give up our traditional platform business, but we are in the middle of a transformation. And if you look at that, our world is changing, and I think it has accelerated, especially after the introduction of the iPhone in 2007. But we also see that a lot of our people are scared of the fast change that we experience everywhere. At least I can tell you, when I joined Airbus in 2016, and I was talking about starting to develop more platforms, my people thought I'm talking about aircrafts, because in the Airbus language, a platform is an aircraft. When they understood that I'm talking about software platforms, they were scared that I would redirect research and development money from hardware platform to software platforms, and that they would have less to develop their products and systems. This is not the case. But what we didn't do in the past, we didn't use the unique data that our systems and platforms generate to generate additional digital services. And this is something that we are currently exploring, and as you might have seen, only 10 days ago, we went live in Berlin with a new startup called Up42. It's a digital platform for geoinformation. 1.5 years ago, we went live with a startup called Airbus Aerial, where we combine satellite data and drone data in order to provide digital services for customers
especially for like insurances, oil and gas, and many other industries. So we're currently in the midst of a transformation. But we use digital tools, of course, in all areas of our business. We use virtual reality, not only in order to test different passenger experiences in different cabin demonstrations. We also use it in our factories in order to do the checking on our manufacturing. We use them in order to help our people to put the bolts at the right place, to do the checking, the quality controls. So we use all kinds of virtual reality tools already in our manufacturing process. But of course, it's also very relevant in order to test all kinds of new passenger experiences for the future. So how to make it more lively and more comfortable for the passenger to be on a long-haul flight. We also use a lot of manufacturing tools in order to be more fuel efficient. At the end, it's all about ensuring that we reduce our CO2 emissions. And as we still have the thumbs of rule, where rule of thumbs where we see that the passenger flights double every 15 years, we have to contribute to make flights more efficient and less fuel consumption. This is an example also coming from nature, where we use bionic structures in order to reduce the weight. And of course, this is only possible with the new calculation tools that we have in place, and also using digital twins in our PLM process in order to develop new structures for the aircraft body. But also looking at the mid and long-term future, we have to look at hybrid and electrical flights. How can we ensure that we overcome the burden of burning fossil fuels and go into a world where we can be towards electrical flying? This is today still very limited by the battery quality, but we believe with steps through hybrid, we will be in the mid and long term be able to fly fully electric. We have demonstrated that already with the EFAN, a small two-passenger aircraft, but here you can see the next step of our development in our cooperation with Rolls-Royce and Siemens in order to develop a larger aircraft with hybrid propulsion in order to be less fuel consumption. What we also do is we look at how we can optimize aircraft operations. So we help airlines to do predictive and preventive maintenance by analyzing all the data that our aircraft generate. And an aircraft like the A350 already today generates tons of data, and we have on an A350 something like 250,000 sensors in order to collect data, to provide us information about all the different sense systems on board. And this is something that we now are able to use with the airlines in order to optimize their maintenance service and the aircraft on the ground, which is very relevant for the aircraft operators. This is something we try in Singapore. Today it's still very much limited by the speed of regulation, because of course when you look at different drone operations like drone surveillance, when you look at last mile cargo delivery, when you look at air passenger taxis, the problem is regulation, how to fly in cities. So we tested in cities where we get a lot of support, and this is a demonstration that we currently do in Singapore, where we do shippings from the land towards the vessels in a 3-kilometer range, fully autonomous in a defined air corridor, in order to prove that this can be done in a safe manner and also in a very efficient manner. So this is a service that is currently already ongoing in Singapore. We're very much working with the regulators in order to pave the way for scaling, because the problem with all these business models, especially with drone operations, it is about having the right to fly over crowds, fly to out of line of sight, and especially making it possible to fly autonomous, because today we still have a lot of areas where we can only fly with one pilot, one drone, and within line of sight. But of course, in order to scale, we need to be fully autonomous, and Airbus has a lot of skills in this area coming from the military side, going now into the civil side, so we will be able to operate drones also in a safe manner in the future in cities. We also explore the platform business, because what we believe tomorrow is about ecosystem. It's not only about hardware platforms, so we have to also be able to provide additional services. Here, this is a service called WOOM that we are currently testing in Sao Paulo and in Mexico City. It gives you access through an app to helicopter service to fly from the airport downtown. And I know if you have been in Sao Paulo, arriving in the morning at peak time, at a rainy day, you know how much time it takes you to go from the airport to downtown. So be able to order a helicopter service via an app on the scratch is a tremendous advantage. And this is something we also explore together with a partner like Audi in order to have a needless, seamless, point-to-point transportation for the passenger. Because at the end, it's all about creating an end-to-end passenger experience which is effortless, which is easy to use, and of course, comfortable. This is something, I hope you have seen it. We have done a demonstration flight a few days ago. It's coming from a helicopter concept, but in order to pave the way for regulation processes, what we did is we use a drone propulsion, but in the first step with several passengers, but still with a pilot in order to certify and prepare the option of have full autonomous flight in the future. This is currently built in Donauwörth in Germany, and we have also a drone test center close there in Manching, where we are able to test drones in really good conditions. And this is a real model that is flying already today and will be something that we will roll out in the years to come in order to certify first for pilot service and then later on for full autonomous services. This is another demonstrator that we are running in California. It's called Vahana. What is here differently is you can see it has wings, and what it does, it takes a vertical takeoff and then it switches the wing and it propels horizontally, which is quite a challenge. We have done already several flights and we're testing continuously now in California to ensure that this will be a concept of the future. It has a higher range, it has a higher speed, and it has only a passenger capacity of 1 to 2, but it gives us a lot of insights in order to how to certify in a safe way drones that can be operated later in cities as well. So another demonstration that we have done is in the collaboration with Audi and their design study. And this is quite an interesting concept because it combines the automotive and the aerospace industry, and it takes the best of the two and combines it into a mobility concept that is very flexible and modular. So you have a passenger cabin that can be put on wheels, and it can be put under a drone propulsion system, so it gives you unique flexibility in order to adapt to the different circumstances of the modern urban life. This is already you see on the left side in the corner, this is already pop-up next. This is the second generation. It's a lighter, optimized model, which was at a scale model of 1:4, demonstrated in November in Amsterdam. So this was already a real demonstrator, showing that it's possible to create models like that. And we hope that when regulation kicks in, that we enable our future to be mobile, be flexible, and to have these kinds of concepts in our urban area. Because it will give us a complete different lifestyle, because today we have to live in cities to have all the comfort of jobs, having access to additional services. But if you have concepts like that, you can increase your range. You can live in a suburb without having traffic jams in the morning and still be on time for your job and being very flexible in your life. And of course, it will also transform the cities that we know, Because today we have something like 13–14% of the whole surface of a city covered by parking spaces. So in the future, we hope we can use some of these spaces for other applications that are more comfortable for civil population. So a lot of new concepts that are paving the way for different kind of mobility, and Airbus is definitely trying to evolve in all these directions. So what is also important is it is not only about software and hardware, it is about enabling us to be also working in an ecosystem, working in an open ecosystem with partners, but it also shows that the skills that we have used in the past to develop our innovations and products and systems, they are changing. So we will, in the 55,000 people to hire, 20% will be data analysts, programmers, blockchain specialists, and artificial intelligence specialists. So we will change the skill sets. We will add them. It's not replacing existing skills, it's adding towards the skills that we have today in our company. And it will provide the ability to make this vision of urban mobility live and help us to change some of the problems of our society. Thank you much for your attention.
He started his career at 13 years old and received his first award at 19. Nowadays, he is a managing partner, global strategy, offerings, and innovation platforms at IBM. Please welcome to the stage the multiple award winner, the one, the only, Mr. Jesus Mantas.
Good morning. Pretty packed morning already, so I'm going to take you to almost lunchtime. In my career, I've had a lot of opportunities to speak about technology, but today is a different day. I'm actually here to talk about humanity. I'm here to talk about what it is that technology can do in order to help us achieve our full potential as a human race. So I bring a very simple message, and the message is that on the screen. Those who make digitalization more human are the ones that will actually win and thrive. That is, focus on the interface between technology and humans in order to achieve better performance. Now, I'm an engineer, so I like to structure when I have a point of view in a logical sequence. So I'm going to walk you through what do I mean by that. I'm going to tell you why I believe it matters, and then I'm going to give you a couple of hints on how do you actually do it. First, what do I mean by humanity and interfacing with technology? And for context, I'm going to take a quick history on our humanity. You see, as humans, we have related to tools in a pretty simple way. Typically, we have used tools to help us achieve something. It's a fairly rational interface between humanity and tools. And there is a very powerful element of our evolution that created a very strong bond that made us actually the species that we are, which we call empathy. And that interaction between humans is actually very strong. So the rational side is weaker, the emotional side is very strong. So you see, in the history of all of these interfaces, from the man basically just having a lever to improve the physical connection to everything around them, those interfaces have been very limited. I mean, think about it. A keyboard, a mouse, a screen. For the most part, it is a rational interface. It is unlike what we have between us and other tools. One could say, as technology has got better, we have actually developed some emotional connection to some of that technology, or at least many of my friends tell me that about me and my cars. So there is a little bit of emotional connection there, but it's pretty much one way. I fall in love with the car, but the car doesn't really understand me. So the opportunity is, well, could we actually create a bond between us or our tools that would be as strong as the empathy that we actually use between people? So that is what I mean, what our opportunity is. So for the first time, we have the convergence of multiple elements. From one side, artificial intelligence is technology that can actually understand what we do. Cognitive science, which is our own understanding on those interfaces and how our behavior works. And design as the art in which you transform the engineering and the architecture of those choices into something that connects deeply into that empathy interface. So that is what I mean. Why is it relevant? See, most of us, in any given day, we would be asked, do you think you make good decisions? Do you think you're rational? And most of us would say, yeah, of course. I really study things before I make a decision, and I'm very thoughtful in the way that I pick things out. That is what we think. The reality is quite different. The reality is most of us will make decisions not based on underlying facts, but actually based on how those facts are presented to us. Let me give you some examples. On the decision on how much money will you save for your retirement, there were studies done that said the moment that the choice from opting in, so you had to take an action to actually save money, was changed to an opting out, which is you have to take an action not to save money, the pace of savings in the United States in that study went from 42% to 91%. You see, there is no underlying change. Nothing else changed. The only change is, do you need to do something to save, or do you need to something to not save? $30 billion of decisions were swayed just by how the data was presented to us. As a matter of fact, there are professors there that take it to the extreme, that say up to 95% of all of our purchase decisions, even when we think they're rational, the rational part is only there to confirm the emotional choice we have already made. So up to 95% of behaviors, actions, are more dependent on that strong empathy interface, on the emotional side of our humanity and our brains, than the rational data around that. Not convinced yet? Okay, let me do a very, very simple experiment. What I have there for you to see is a very simple figure. And I have marked two squares on that picture, square A and square B. If you're like most people, and again, this is a very simple question. When I ask most people, it's like, tell me which square is darker. Everybody tells me, well, I see A darker than B, so if you're asking me, it must be B. And then I say, no, it's not B. So I repeat again, which square is darker? So how many of you would say that square A is darker than square B? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Well, Shafi knows the answer, so he's not raising his hand, but pretty much everybody else in this auditorium is raising it. About typically 85% of the people will raise their hands. Let me do this now. Let me keep those squares the same, but eliminate the context that I added to that picture. Which square is darker, A or B? And the answer is they're identical. They're exactly identical. But even if you're staring at that picture and you have them side by side, your brain can't let you believe that the square B in one side and the square B in the other is the same. They must be doctored, because your brain is telling you by the additional context, B is clearly lighter than A is clearly darker than B. If I would frame a decision for you to make, and I would add that context, you would not make the decision based on the fact that pixel by pixel, A and B are identical in color and in shape, but by the actual context that I added to shape your decision. So remember, we make decisions more on how things are presented to us than the underlying facts. And yet, as technologists, we are spending a lot of our time creating unbelievable precise algorithms to give us precise answers, but yet we're going to behave and act based on how data is presented to us. So let me bring us back to the same point again. When you take artificial intelligence and you create systems that interact with us humans, when you optimize those interfaces for emotion and for human condition, that is the biggest lever on changing performance of humans and society in general. And it's a lever bigger, I would say, than any other technology advancement in the history of our race. In the same way that empathy was the biggest invention to actually boost our survival rate as a species. So, if you understood the what, and hopefully you're persuaded by the why, the next answer is, so how do you do it? Don't have a comprehensive list, but I have a few tips that may be helpful. So it comes down to take what we know of human cognition, what we know on how we actually make decisions, and translate those patterns in how do you connect technology to technology and even people to people. First principle that I now use, and many really, really good designers, especially web designers and mobile app designers, do it intuitively without knowing they're using this principle. Is what I call the principle of the least effort. In physics, you know, there is the principle of least energy. In human cognition, there is the principle of least effort. And my interpretation of it goes like this, is most people will do what's easy more often than they will do what's right. So think about that. People will do what's easy more often than they will do what's right. And trillion-dollar companies have been formed on that principle with the single idea of, well, maybe then we should have a one-click buy button because it is the least amount of effort. So the guideline of those interfaces is, if you actually want people to do what's right, make what's right easy. Think about, it works in policy, it works in corporate processes, it works in engineering, and it works in the way that you design a website, an application, or interface technology with humans. Ask yourself, every time you add a click, every time you have an action that takes energy, the likelihood of that happening will reduce. Second thing is understanding how humans are wired. We were not wired, our brain was not wired to actually remember very long, meaningless numbers. As a matter of fact, it's actually very easy to test how limited the computational power of the brain is. The brain is a fantastic machine of pattern recognition. It's a really poor machine of number crunching. And I can test it right now. So help me with this. 2 plus 2 is what? 4, right? 2 plus 2? 4. Can you say 4? 2 plus 2? 4. 4 plus 4? 8. 8 plus 8? 16. Okay, 16 times 272. We're only multiplying. It's not even complicated, right? Very limited. I can tell you, remember 3 numbers. 282. Can you remember those three numbers? 282, right? If I give you 7 numbers, 282731547, can you repeat them? No. So when you're creating an interface between technology and a person, there is something that if you tell that person to remember 4 digits, they probably can do it on their short-term memory and just apply it, and it will be a good experience. If you tell them to remember 7, 8, 20 digits, now you're forcing that person to spend more energy to have to write it down and then come back to the interface. So when you interface technology with humans, make sure that you realize that we were not designed to retain a lot of numbers. The other things that we do is we're extremely adaptive. We are constantly rebaselining our experience. So I remember the first time that I was giving a set of numbers to do a conference call. Everybody here has done a conference call, right? So you dial a number, and you have your own code. You memorize that code, and then everybody comes in, and everybody speaks, right? Conference calling. Very usual. And then one day, in my mobile device, somebody told me, if you type those numbers all together, then you can have a one-click dial. So you one-click, and you're in the conference call. How many of you, having a phone, have actually done one click and joined a conference call? Just raise your hands. Okay, about half of the audience. Or a URL. Now, what happened that same day is when somebody else sends you an email with a list of numbers that you actually now have to dial to enter on a conference call, what happens? Is you're really mad because you actually want that one-click button. You just re-baseline the entire experience, and now something that was perfectly fine now is really a bad experience. Not because the experience changed, but just because somebody gave you a better experience. And then, it's a favorite topic that we talk a lot about. Humans have a lot of biases. A lot of biases. So make sure that you use them as features as you actually design those interfaces, almost like a way to reverse engineer how do you expect the person to act, and then use those as features in that interface. I think my time is up, so the last thing that I would give you with is we actually now understand better how technology can mimic the way that humans form relationships with either, other beings, animals, or with ourselves. So technology that actually understands the architecture of relationships and use it effectively without encroaching in the creepiness factor will be superiorly adapted compared to any other technology. As I said, I'm going to finish as we started. It is a lot more that we can do to get technology connected with humanity in a way that massively enhances performance well beyond the accuracy or power of all of those algorithms. Thank you, and I hope you all have a great Webit.
Coming on stage is a tenacious, hands-on program manager with 22 years experience delivering bespoke IT development projects and business change solutions within the investment banking, commercial, and public sectors. He's Vice President, Digital Identity, CNIS of MasterCard. Please welcome to the stage, Mr. Dan Johnson.
Good afternoon. Wow, they didn't tell me I was going to get fired. That's awesome. Well, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak to you today. I have a few things that I really want to cover. But first, just a little bit of history, really, about me and about what MasterCard are doing here. I've been fortunate enough to work in the space of digital identity for a few years now. I originally started my journey developing a strategy for customer data management at a bank. And I stumbled upon a book by Dave Birch called Identity is the New Money. And it hit me that actually the way to manage customer data would be to allow the consumer to manage their data and then provide that in a way that could be trusted by organizations. And that really started me on my journey for on digital identity. I was asked to join MasterCard early last year. And that really was because back in 2006, MasterCard created the MasterCard Foundation, which is a part of the organization that really focuses on inclusion. And we see that digital identity is a key factor in inclusion. Being able to access financial products and services as an individual really starts with identity, being able to prove that you are who you say you are and that you have a set of entitlements. That's really, really key. So we see that all digital interactions really start at their core with digital identity. I'm here today to talk to you about our thinking on digital identity. We described this recently, so in March this year, in a white paper called Restoring Trust in a Digital World. And if you haven't had an opportunity to read it already, I heartily recommend that you do. It's available at mastercard.com/digital identity. It's a shameless plug for some of our work, but it's a really good document. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the content of that information today. That paper started with a set of interviews in 5 cities around the world with 130 identity professionals, all with a view on identity, the requirements, why we don't have a digital identity ecosystem today, and listing all of the challenges and reasonings behind the need for digital identity. We consolidated that information along with our own thinkings and our own learnings, and then developed that into our white paper. MasterCard have been working for the last 50 years or so in creating operational frameworks that instill trust in the way that people interact online. People are comfortable with the way that the MasterCard payment network works. They know that they can trust it. And so we started thinking, well, could we apply some of the same thinking around the way that payment networks work to the way that identity should work? Fundamentally, what we need is a way to trust information. It's all well and good for me as a consumer to be able to say that I am who I say I am. Interestingly enough, I'm registered at this event as Charlie Walton, not as Dan Johnson. My boss, Charlie, was unable to make it today. And so I have to prove that I really am who I say I am in order to be here today. The trust is really, really key, and it's not about just being able to assert information. You really need to be able to prove that you are who you say you are. We have an existing paradigm for how to prove that you are who you say you are in a face-to-face or in a physical environment. So when I was very young and I needed to open my first bank account as a child, my dad took me to my bank. We sat down with the bank manager. My dad filled out a bunch of forms. He needed to prove his relationship with the bank, and thus I became known to the bank. Also, when I meet people for the first time, often it's done through somebody that we know or trust, which means that I can feel confident that the person that I'm being introduced to is genuinely who they say they are, and that person can also feel confident that they know who I am. Now that works really, really well in a face-to-face environment, but unfortunately it doesn't really translate particularly well into an online environment. In her book, Who Can You Trust?, Rachel Botsman described trust as a confident relationship with the unknown. So when we started thinking about what role MasterCard could play in creating an identity ecosystem, we knew fundamentally that we had to start with the user. Building the user into the model right at the very beginning is absolutely crucial. This can't be an afterthought. Everything has to center around the individual. In our white paper and our vision paper, we describe 10 principles for identity. There is a full description in the paper, and I recommend having a look through there. But again, fundamentally, all of those concepts really focus on the fact that the user is right in the center of all of their identity interactions and transactions. We're not in the business of building an enormous identity database in the cloud. We think that's entirely the wrong direction to be going in. We've seen through data breaches and other issues that having huge amounts of data, personally identifiable information in the cloud is not a great idea. Centering information around the individual and allowing that individual to exert control over the data that they have and the way that they interact with organizations, we see as fundamentally important. And in fact, when we were designing the system, we started looking at, well, how would we feel about using the system? So we designed a system that we feel comfortable using. And it's all well and good designing a system to enable a person to create or to establish their identity. But really, fundamentally, it comes down to use of that identity. And that's really a key part that MasterCard have to play in the creation of an identity ecosystem. We have relationships with 23,000 banks, with 50 million merchants. We operate in 200 countries around the world. And all of those merchants are providing products and services to individuals. All of our business has been around connecting users to merchants and in order to enable them to obtain the products and services that they desire. Now that could be opening a bank account or obtaining a card or some other service, some other financial service. It could be proving that I am who I say I am in order to participate in the sharing economy, either as offering services or consuming services. It could be as simple as proving that I'm over the age of 18 or 21 in order to be able to buy wine, either online or in person. So fundamentally, the use cases, the utility of identity is fundamentally important. So we created a system model to reflect how an identity ecosystem should work. It starts with users and the users interacting with relying parties being the organizations consuming identity data and offering products and services. But that's not enough in a system. Fundamentally, we need to be able to trust that information, which is where identity verification providers come in. These are organizations that have golden source data that they're able to offer to help to verify that information about a user is true and is accurate. These will be government agencies, so registers, passport office, tax records, driver's license authorities. There'll be mobile network operators being able to prove that a person is in control of a device, for example. And many other organizations, universities to establish qualifications. And again, that's not enough. What we need is a way for an individual to interact with the rest of the world, with those relying parties, and that's where trust providers come in. Trust providers are organizations that have large consumer bases and also have considerable trust in the market to be able to develop that relationship with the consumer and to provide them with a set of tools that will help them to manage their identity in their relationship with relying parties. And even that's not enough. Fundamentally, there needs to be some glue that holds all of this together. A digital identity service that deals with orchestration of data flows, the security, the trust in the environment, dealing with liability apportionment, and other factors that will help to ensure that all of the parties are acting in the way that they're supposed to, all with the interest of users fundamentally at the front of their minds. So all of that comes together in what we have created as our system model for identity. And we see that MasterCard are qualified and also appropriate to be able to deliver that service and connecting all of these parties together, again, with the user in mind. But we can't do this on our own. Fundamentally, this is a collaborative effort. We need organizations like banks, like mobile network operators, tech providers, and other organizations, all to work together with a common goal of establishing an identity framework and an identity operational system that allows all of these parties to work together in cohesion. From a government perspective, not only do we see governments as being able to provide evidence of identity, but we also see them as ensuring that the user is protected in the environment and that local regulation is adjusted to allow for digital assertion of identity. Seem to have gone on one slide too many there. You'll notice that I haven't talked about our product or our service. I haven't talked about the partners that we are working with. I haven't talked about the markets that we're operating in. All of that is stuff that we are working on. We are actively engaged, and more announcements will be coming in the not too distant future. We believe fundamentally that we are well positioned as an organization to create an identity ecosystem. We have the resources, we have the DNA, and most importantly, we have the will to create such a system. We are striving to make a difference. We feel that the right way to do this is to lay out how we're thinking as we're thinking about it and not operate behind closed doors. This is fundamental to generating a system that people can trust in and believe in and will operate effectively. We're just getting started. We know that this is going to be a messy journey, a long journey, and it's going to be constantly challenging. One of the main reasons I'm here today is to ask for your help. If you are a tech company, a bank, a mobile network operator, I'd like you to think about how you could use identity in order to reduce friction in your consumer interactions. I'd like you to think about how you could provide data into the system to other relying parties in order to extract value from the data that you have and to provide better systems for individuals. If you are tech companies, I'd like you to think about what could you bring? How could you collaborate? How could you help us in order to deliver a fresh, relevant system in the market? And also, I'd like you to think about how to challenge us. Where have we gone wrong? What haven't we thought of yet? And if you can provide that feedback to us, that would be fantastically helpful in establishing an identity ecosystem. I'm afraid right now I don't especially have time for questions. I'm going to be around for the rest of the day. If you see me around, please stop me and talk to me about your ideas and also what do you think of our proposition and how that works. thank you very much for listening.
And now, for those of you who are already bored with the present and want to see the big picture of the future more clearly, we have a panel titled Vision for Europe 2030 and Protecting the People and the Businesses. So please welcome on stage your moderator, Mr. Webit himself, Dr. Plamen Rusev.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our Vision for Europe 2030 panel. It's a special panel for us because at the end of the day, what we try to do is to set up the trends and to build opportunities for Europe. I'm very honored and grateful to have these amazing panelists now coming out with me. And I start with with the lady, Natalia Oporeza, who is Chief Cybersecurity Officer of Siemens, Mr. Dick Hoke, who already saw on the stage, the Chief Executive Officer of Airbus Defense, Mr. Thomas Arnholder, who is the A1 CEO, and Mr. Erik Rasmussen, who is the CEO of IHS. So please welcome them on the stage. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for joining. Thank you. Okay, so I guess there are too many interesting things going on out there, but those that are here want to hear about the future of Europe. And I wish we have the opportunity to further what we will doing now. We work with our innovation and knowledge partner, i.e. Business School, who are taking very careful notes from our discussions, and they will be sent to over 2,000 media and to all the European Commission just before the elections. And this is hopefully going to be a good guideline for where the business wants Europe to go and how we see it. So I have a number of very important questions, and I would like to start with the lady, of course. What consequences has the growing interconnection of devices? How do you see the future, both challenges and opportunities?
Well, you know, this digital world is a world of software, first of all. It is also a world that is increasing the interconnection. So by year 2020, 20 billion of devices, IT devices will be connected. And it really doesn't matter how many, but the fact is that they are going to be connected. And the fact that we have a world including software means as well that we have a world including vulnerabilities. And unfortunately, there are several actors, call it hackers, if you will, that they have different motivations to do something with those vulnerabilities and use them either to win information or to do something else. And then, of course, this can create difficulties to society to use the advantage of this digitalized world. And therefore, what we need to do as society is to create and increase trust in the utilization and the usage of these digital solutions. And the way we are increasing trust is by protecting the information, by protecting the digital products that we have in our society, so that they can be used by everyone in a safety manner, by protecting the different information that is included in this digital world. So this is kind of the challenges that we have, including both risk and opportunities, because we have a lot of opportunities to grow into the different cybersecurity solutions that we are providing to the digital world. So this is what I can tell you from
Let me connect here to go back to the general topic, Mr. Arnolder. Compared to US and China, where do you see the competitive advantages of Europe?
Well, good morning, first of all.
I don't know how many of you are familiar with the name of the Sputnik moment or know what the Sputnik moment is. You know, in 1957, when the Russians launched the first artificial satellite, the Americans were shocked because they had completely missed what is going on. And that led to what we call the space race, the race to the moon. And eventually in 1969, the Americans succeeded with the first human landing on the moon. And I feel, in a sense, what is happening today in Europe, hopefully, is the Sputnik moment for Europe. Your event is part of creating that Sputnik atmosphere, because what we see at the moment is that Europe is lagging behind in many dimensions, I believe. If you look at the lack of growth in comparison to what is happening both in the West as well as in the East. We talked about artificial intelligence, where we heard today that many things are happening by the commissioner, but if you compare it to China, we are completely lagging behind. We are lagging behind in autonomous driving, in e-mobility. We have to catch up in 5G in many dimensions, and that needs to serve for us as a wake-up call in Europe. I think we have very strong assets. We will be talking about it later, I guess. Very strong assets, but we need to understand that the European model is not built on military supremacy or a 1.3 billion domestic market with very cheap labor. It's built on innovation and economic competitiveness. And it seems to me that we tend to forget this legacy which we have. We have become too self-comfortable, and we really need to catch up in order, to seize that moment of the Sputnik moment in order to catch up that competitiveness edge in 2030.
Well, I would like to ask the same question to Mr. Hawkins. So, you are executive director of one of the Europe's prides. It's Airbus, and particularly of the space and defense. Where do you see our competitive edge? Where do you see Europeans? And let's not oppose continents. Let's build up on our values, on what we have, and how we can use it to improve people's life here.
I think we have everything it takes. We have proven that over the time. You see, Airbus is a good example of what Europe can achieve if they stick together. Because the problem is today, if we would try to build an Airbus today, I'm not sure it would work. So we were very lucky that at the right point of time, the right people came together under the pressure to decide, do we want a monopolist running the air traffic of the world, or do we want to have competition and having a second company building up in order to compete? Because at the end, everyone takes advantage of it, because competition creates innovation. And it has been since then that aerospace has developed very nicely because of the head-to-head race of two very important companies. And I'm sure there will be a third one in the future, but there is the need for competition. It creates innovation. The disadvantage we have in Europe today is we go back to fragmentism and we go back to nationalism. So I think what is important is that we keep the European idea, that we use the innovation capacity that we have and the diversity, which is, I think, the root of our innovation, in order to build more companies like Airbus and to keep also our innovation in line for space, for other topics as well. Yeah.
We're talking, everything that we talk makes one sense only: improving people's lives. Everything, technology, whatever. Why would we do it if not for this? And in order to have different points of view outside of Europe, I will be hopeful to hear from Mr. Rasmussen your thoughts, because if we say democracy is not perfect, but there has not been invented anything better yet, from your point of view as a professional in the let's say challenging areas of defending that, would you say that you see any challenges in changing the way the future of democracy looks like, democratic elections, and how it looks?
It's a good question, and I'm very sensitive to the fact that I'm the only American up here on a Europe Vision 2030 panel. So I want to be careful about how I express what I think is important for you, but I do recognize that the forces that are pressuring Europe are looking to divide. And education has been weakened, at least in my country, in ways that make it more difficult to understand where we came from as a democratic experiment and what the impact of the war was on the building of post-war institutions, what the result of those institutions has been in prolonged peace and increasing integration and the increasing simplicity of moving goods from place to place, raising everybody just a little bit from where they were before, and giving them aspirations to what might come next. You have your European model under challenge. And I think that when I think of 2030 for Europe, I wish for you coherence and prosperity and a degree of success that capitalizes on what you've already done, but also recognizes you are in the midst of a lot of opposition, and you need to ensure that your citizens are well educated in critical thinking and in those processes that are designed to manipulate and to separate, to divide, to irritate, and help your citizens learn how best to oppose those forces and hold on to the good things you have.
Well, saying that, I cannot stop but asking you the question, aren't you concerned about the growing populism in America now?
There are challenges everywhere, shall we say? It is clear that there is a rising separation. There are inward-looking political efforts that are aiming to break down the bridges that we have built. They are taking multiple forms. Some aspects of my own federal government are a part of that damaging process, and it is reverberating elsewhere. And we just saw today a headline in the New York Times saying that the midterm elections in the Philippines have been a resounding reinforcement of Duterte. That's more fodder for the concern that we have on the rise of populism, the rise of nationalism, and the methods that are being used to separate us, to turn us against one another, and I think it needs to be actively opposed.
Well, I think that here Ms. Oporeza can give a point of view as a Chief Security Officer of Siemens, of such a, it's one of the prides of Europe also. How do you believe in these new changing times the trust will be sustained? Because without trust, there's no society, and there are no opportunities in general. If you don't trust people, if you don't trust the basic infrastructure you're using. So what is your opinion on that?
Yeah, trust is the new gold. And the best way to do it is by cooperating. So we have to cooperate a lot to reestablish trust and to be fast in providing the right cybersecurity solution. So as you know, let's say the bad guys called hackers, and you can call them somewhere else, but at the end of the day, they are acting very fast and they are developing themselves very fast. They don't have to look for regulations, they don't have internal processes to follow, so they use the technologies that we have available, so they act very fast. And we, as society, we need to be fast as well. So one of the things that we have done in the last several months, actually in the last year, was to partner with different companies, very important companies like IBM, companies like Airbus, and we founded the so-called Charter of Trust. And what the Charter of Trust is including is a set of 10 principles on how do we want to address cybersecurity responsible, on a responsible way for the society. And the principles are including things like taking ownership of the topic and giving to the topic, to the cybersecurity topic, the right priority, the right importance that we need to do, given transparency on the number of attacks that we have. We all have attacks. Probably, if you say you don't have, not you as a person, but you as an example, yes. If you tell me you don't have any cybersecurity attacks, I would think that you rather don't know that you have it. And everyone has it. Everyone has to deal with that. Everyone has to make the best out of that and install the proper measures to do that. So we are very proud. We have a year already. We are very proud of being together doing this, and because we don't have time to reinvent the wheel. And we are cooperated together with the partners. IBM, I mentioned, Airbus, I mentioned, but as well Cisco, and as well others. And we already agree on different solutions to be developed once and used by every other partner so that we can act very fast in the provision of cybersecurity in this digital world. It is a global charter. It's not only Europe. So we are including every company in every part of the world to cooperate with us.
I will go back to the global vision. If we open the news, you only see news majorly for Google, Facebook, you have Alibaba, and many others. So my question is for you, Mr. Arnold. Do you think, what is the competitiveness of Europe compared to these giants? Because even now Bulgaria, as I was proud to be appointed as digital ambassador for the country, to talk to big companies. Because some companies became more powerful than countries. They had more impact than countries. What about Europe? Do we have these, and are we looking at more to rise, and how we keep them in Europe but not losing them? What is our competitiveness?
Well, let me start first with saying what our competitive advantage definitely is not, is regulation.
Right.
And what we tend to believe is that we can fight those giants with regulation. But that does never work, and it is just putting European companies at a disadvantage. And we see that in Europe we're just too slow and too focused with regulation. Just let me take the example of the new copyright initiative, which in principle I support. But the discussion has started in 2010. I discussed this the other week with Commissioner Oettinger at the lunch. He described it to me. It started in 2010. He kicked off the process in 2016. Now we have approved it, and we have 2 more years in order to put the European regulation into national law. Between 2010 and 2019, Facebook increased its subscriber base from 500 million to 2.5 billion customers or users which they have. So that's not the means, but we do have assets. We have very strong international companies still, even though we would not have it today.
We are
if
very
you think
honored
about
to have all of them here, most of them.
Think
not
about
all.
competition law today, Siemens Alstom, we would not have Airbus today. But we have biggest airspace companies. We have the biggest chemistry company. We have still, even though under trouble, the biggest automotive sector. We have excellent telco companies, I have to say, obviously. Also on the telco vendor side, the discussion about Huawei, it's about a discussion between 2 Chinese and 2 European vendors. We have still a very strong educational system. We have, by and large, stable democracies, and that's an asset. We have high quality of living, which in principle is a means of attracting talent. But there are so many more things to do, like the harmonization, like the focus on growth, on innovation, like deregulation, like creating level playing field on a global scale, not on a local scale. We are just thinking about level playing fields on national level or on European level, but we need to think globally. If you found a startup in China working with AI, your laboratory is 1.3 billion citizens.
Right.
Here it's 7, with the restrictions of GDPR. In Austria, my home company, it's 8 with the restriction of GDPR. Don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of GDPR because for us as a large corporation, trust plays an important role. But for small companies, we need sandboxes in order to be able to scale up. And I think this is really where we have to work on in Europe.
Well, Mr. Hockey, that's, I've already mentioned you're doing great stuff internally, building acceleration programs, creating opportunities. I would like to ask you the same question, the competitiveness, through your point of view, through your shoes.
I think today we are still competitive, but it's getting more and more complicated. We have to attract talent in the war for talent. That's, of course, all the gaffers look for the same competence profiles like us, and of course we still have like elements like space where people are really attracted to. So aerospace is still a big attraction for young people. So this is helping us, but it gets more and more difficult. And exactly as said, our competitiveness by the fragmentation of the national thinking in Europe is creating a lot of problems because we have to optimize for each of the countries. A company like us, we have 4 home countries. Now adding Canada, we say we have 5 home countries. But of course, it is also very complex in the steering of a company, in the balance of the company. But I still believe we have all the talent it takes, but fully agree, if we don't get our act together in Europe and start thinking European, being able to address a 500 million people market, we will lose on many of the topics. And the next topic we will lose is space. Because right now, the Americans and the Chinese are accelerating their ambition in space, and we in Europe discuss what we would like to do next. And we will be the sub-supplier probably to the Americans and Chinese in the future if we don't decide what our ambition and vision for Europe on space is, for example.
Well, I have some few numbers for you, and I'll be happy to hear your comments. 13 years ago, Europe was responsible for approximately 32% of the global GDP production. 13 years later, Europe is responsible for around 21. It's like almost 1/3 of the role of Europe being vanished. I mean, in the global GDP production. And of course, we know where the replacement comes from, who is adding the value and who is decreasing the value. I would leave it up to you to answer this question, and whoever wants to start first. Do you think we can change the trends? Or shall we see the trend deepening and getting even worse for Europe? So what do you think?
I think we should change the trend. It's not that we could, but we should change the trend, of course. And I think Europe has a lot of success in the past and has been proven to be a strong union in the provision of the different products and solutions, included technology as well. So I think we have, all of us need to look into that situation, and I think we should grow more and do more for the global economy. Yeah, absolutely.
That's a goodwill, but
I believe that the current changes through digital transformation give us in the future a competitive edge to bring a lot of the capacity back to Europe. Because remember 20, 30 years ago, we were looking for low-cost countries for production. Today, with additive manufacturing, this competitive advantage is not a regional topic anymore. So there are a lot of topics going through the digital twin, going into digital PLM tools, simulation. We can make manufacturing competitive in Europe again. And on top, having the domain of many of the key industries worldwide in Europe, we have a fundamental differentiating factor. And IT, as much as it is important, it is also in many areas already commodity, because to be honest, which cloud you store your data in is not a competitive advantage, because you have at least 3 to choose from, maybe 4 or 5 if you take the smaller ones in. Of course, it would be great to have a European platform, but it's not the most important thing. But we should, and I think you're a good example of that. You can create a network and a base for innovation in Europe. We could scale it to 500 million people and we could ensure that startup founders staying here because they get hopefully more access to capital and they can scale their model here in Europe instead of going to the US in order to address a bigger market. So if we get our regulation and European approach together, we have everything it takes. And I think especially if we protect our domain know-how, we will be also leading edge in the decades to come.
It is certainly possible for you in your reunification of your effort to focus on space or something like that. I would argue that you should look at climate. I work at a fair number of corners of the world where climate change is already evident. It is going to become more evident over a relatively short period of time, and there is an opportunity for European firms to take the lead on the mitigation strategies and the mitigation technologies and the opportunities to leapfrog from those things that are doing the damage to those things that are helping repair. And I don't think that opportunity is yet being taken fully inside Europe. It's also not being taken fully inside my country, but it is being addressed pretty effectively in Asia, and there are some transformations in India, not much yet that I know about in Africa. There is a wide open opportunity to make a ton of money doing good on climate mitigation strategies and technologies.
So what is your thought on the numbers and the opportunities?
By principle, I'm an optimist, and I think there is plenty of opportunities actually, and there's plenty of assets. And the cultural, but as well as economic diversity which we have in Europe is an asset which we have to seize much more. We have very strong businesses in environmental affairs. We have very strong businesses, I mentioned a few before, in manufacturing. Now with those new technologies coming up, like 5G, where we're investing a lot and where we have been preparing ourselves a lot already since quite a few years, actually, I have to say. 5G will act as a platform of combining many of those assets, devices, industries, and we have to seize the potential of doing partnerships with manufacturing, with environmental companies, with that big ecosystem which we still have in Europe, in order to come up with use cases, seizing in our case 5G, but also seizing all the new technological developments which we see coming up. However, we need to have the regulatory, or I should rather say non-regulatory framework in order to scale up that innovation, and this is where part of my concern is.
Well, because of course you're a very regulated business, yes, and as a telco. So I would like to hear about, at the end of the day, you are shaping the future. You're providing the infrastructure, and it's definitely important that we see the growth in the sector rather than the opposite, which we see now, because what will happen next. So what do you think are the biggest challenges for the policymakers in the next 1 to 2 decades, from your point of view?
Well, number one is understanding the complexity of the world we're living in and the impact of technology in that world. Number two is being able to think globally and not only locally, being able to either deregulate or export regulation. GDPR could be an example of positive export of regulation if we manage to create a global level playing field. If we don't manage to do so, we have to rethink GDPR. But it can't be an uneven playing field. Number three is the speed of the decision-making process. I gave you an example before. And the last one I really would like to point out is modernizing our education system. I think we have a very strong foundation. I think I was very fascinated by the example of the mathematician you gave. My son is also 6 years old. I don't think he has earned any mathematics medal yet. But these young people, they are full of fire, full of empathy, full of positive energy, and let's not destroy them. Let's give them the opportunity, to embrace life, to learn, to do what they feel passionate about, and let's not move them through an education system which in some of the cases is using tools from 30, 40 years ago.
It's very optimistic, even more, I believe.
I told you I'm an optimist.
Yeah, yeah, you are an optimist.
No, it's not enough to complain. That's true for competitiveness. That's true also for populism, which was addressed before. It's easy to complain about populism, but you have to propose an alternative model, an alternative solution. In our business, we also cannot complain about our competition. We have to propose an alternative which for our customers is the better alternative. Yeah. And that's true in business, that's true with populism, that's true in leading Europe. And that's, I think, where we really need to be super focused about. And one thing every citizen of Europe can do is in 2 weeks go to the polls and, give a signal to a strong Europe. That's a very easy thing to do. We will see what the turnout rate at the European election will be. I hope it will be beyond 50%. But still, that's already quite optimistic.
Oh, dear Mr. Hockey, so what is your answer for this? Where, if we have to outline what we expect from our policymakers, because this will be my last question afterwards. Next commission is about to be elected now.
You say?
The next commission, the next college is about to be elected now. We have European elections in 2 weeks' time. You saw here the Commissioner Gabriel, who is in her own elections time, and that's why she excused herself today, because she had to be in 5 different locations, because she wants the vote, of course, of the people who, so she can continue work and do what she's doing. So we are in a very, very last moment of the elections. But as I told you in the beginning, we shall be sending the document from all these discussions through all these political leaders, throughout all our media partners. So what would be the 3 top things that you would expect the new Commission to do in order to inspire the future of Europe 2030? And of course, to make it a better one for all of us.
Yeah, I think related to my business, there are a couple of things. Of course, it should be with the direction to strengthen competitiveness of Europe. And this is only possible if you take the egoism of each of the countries down in order to look at a broader framework of how Europe could compete in a global arena by using the capacity and the strengths of each of the countries, but without always asking what is in for me, but rather looking at the broader picture of Europe. For defense, I hope we will start looking also at a European defense policy, because today we talk about for a long time, we have created a European Defense Fund, we work on a couple of initiatives, but it's still very bureaucratic, very slow, and it will be a proof point very soon, because we talk about some very big European defense projects like the Future Combat Air System. If we are not able to realize this project on a European basis, bringing all the countries together and the key European industry players to realize that project, it would be a very bad sign for Europe and our competitiveness. Because today, the fragmentism of the different systems that we use, they're going against the efficiency, they're going against innovation. And this is, of course, something if you want to also defend our wealth in the future, we have to make sure that we use our resources in an efficient way. And this is only possible if you look at the European defense policy, that we create European defense procurement together, where we really look at synergies and developing systems together.
Ms. Soporeza, what are the 3 things that you want to see Europe
doing? I will focus on only one, and this is that to have regulations, if not global, at least within a European perspective. So we have treaties in Germany, we have something else in France and alike. So in total we have 70 regulations impacting our infrastructure and products, and that makes us very, very slow. That doesn't make us more secure, right? And this is one of the biggest situations that we have to
security,
fix.
Defense. What will be your point of view?
Well, I think I already gave 4 ideas. What what I really want to say for the telco industry as the last thing is, investors are asking ourselves a lot, why should I put my money today in telco industry? You're so regulated, versus the OTTs. We are super efficient. We are investing roughly half of the amount of the Americans per capita, because we're earning half of the revenue than the Americans per capita. Still, we're providing a network quality which is equal or better, meaning we are super efficient in what we do. However, we could do much more. We're doing this as a group. We're moving into entertainment. We're moving into gaming. We're moving into cloud. We're moving into the Internet of Things. We're moving into cybersecurity. We're doing so in Bulgaria very successfully, but we would like to do more as an industry, and I think overall European businesses would like to do more, because we have the attitude, we have the muscle, we have the legacy, we have the assets, but we need to get the opportunity by policymakers.
Thank you very much, and I hear that we have to finish, but the last words from you, American, through the point of view of Europe 2030, the 3 things you think Europe should do better through the policy, regulation and innovation through legislation.
I'm going to give you only one because I'm not competent to answer most of your policy, law, and legislation questions, but I would advocate for you the very best you can do on absorbing new teaching methodologies, so that by 2030 you have a generation of students who have become critical thinkers, who have become innovative thinkers, creative thinkers, confident thinkers, who can take their place on the world stage, bringing Europe the kind of recognition you would like it to have.
Thank you so much for this panel. It was a real honor having you all with us. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.